Muslims total. And it seems fair to assume that similar proportions of people in countries like, say, like Algeria, Syria, Sudan, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Tunisia, Somalia, and Libya are also radicalized. And if they are...
Okay, testing, 1 2, testing 1 2 3 4, testing 1 2 3, testing. And dang it, I opened the wrong window again. Dang it. Okay, just a second. Let me switch to Edge. Let's see here. Come on. Okay, I gotta say, Edge has got a few problems with it. Edge, yeah, testing 1 2, testing 1 2 3 4. This is RHJunior at Reality Check Live. We're opening up. It's about 5-10 minutes late. Do apologize for that. Lost track of the time. Damn it. Pardon my language. For some reason, it's refusing to open any new windows. Just a second here. Having a little trouble with the computer here. Ouch. Darn it. Okay. Okay, let's rock and roll this thing. Alright. Okay, we got 2 people watching, 2 people. That's exciting. I'm all of Twitter. I swear, I got my latest story posted. It's one chapter story is called "Yes, It Matters." It's based off another story called "Does It Really Matter?" or "Would It Matter?" Basic premise is that it's shortly after the invasion of Canterlot. After the invasion, after the wedding. And Fluttershy is unhappy that Twilight is so militant about wanting to make sure that the changelings have been all chased out and tracked down. She says, "Would it, and she pulls the usual progressive argument, which is, would it matter if I was a changeling?" Followed up shortly by, you can't judge them all, by a small group. And basically, it's timely. It is, considering our own nation's current problems we have with illegal immigrants and with Muslim radicals who are invading our country, basically invading our country. The Syrian refugees, it's obviously an invasion. Because the Syrians that are coming across is all able-bodied young men. If you're a refugee, you don't leave your wife and children behind in the war zone and flee for your own sorry ass. But, I noticed that Europe has shut the hell up about us and our Mexican illegal immigrants now that they're getting swarmed themselves. It comes down to this. The story is very timely because we need to address this. We need to address the progressive argument that we are not allowed to judge a group of people by the behavior of the majority that we know. Despite the fact of how Muslims behave all the world over, we are somehow supposed to suspend judgment every time we meet one. We're supposed to pretend it does not matter that they belong to a cult. It's a political, religious, it's a pseudo-religious political movement. It's a conquest campaign that has been going on for 1,400 years, has killed millions of people all over the world, and whose central tenet is conquest and the enslavement of anybody who is not Islamic. Rape, murder, plunder, and enslavement. Those are the four pillars of Islam. They have been for 1,400 years. But we're supposed to somehow pretend that each Muslim we meet is a special, precious snowflake. And we can't judge them by the fact that they belong of their own free will to this organization. And we're supposed to turn a blind eye to the fact that they are overtly and covertly infiltrating our society. Just like they expected us to do with the communists. The Soviet Union spent millions of rubles funding communist turncoats in our country. It came out when the Soviet Union fell. A lot of documents got opened up, and the world discovered, hey, guess what? McCarthy's list, accurate. These people in the name of compassion. They're not teaching compassion. They're just using the name of compassion. Are insisting that we do not have the right to identify our enemies by name or on sight. That we do not have the right to question those or examine those whose loyalty to our country is in question. That we do not have the right as a nation to take precautions necessary for the safety of the Union, because that might hurt somebody's feelings or step on their civil liberties. We have to pretend that we are not on a war footing with enemies who laud our destruction. People who danced in the street and celebrated even as people were still dying in the Twin Towers on September 11th. I remember the footage. I saw the footage that came from around the globe from the news before they cut it off of Muslims in Pakistan and Libya and all over the world dancing in the streets and throwing candy to children, celebrating the deaths of thousands of innocents. But we're not supposed to judge them. And if we do judge them, if we do see somebody who proclaims, I am a Muslim, we're not supposed to judge them by the fact that they've joined a group that's murdering people all over the world. The alleged peaceful, friendly, nonviolent Muslims had their chance to step forward. They didn't. The most that the Islamic people did was throw a tantrum and accuse, the buildings, the bodies hadn't even stopped burning, and they were out there complaining and throwing a tantrum about how people were being prejudiced against them. Wasn't true. This is suicidal. I'm sorry, you belong to a group. You accept the collective guilt of that group. When you choose to identify yourself by an organization whose defining characteristics are anathema to civilization, you take on the onus of whatever they carry. And no, you're not being bigoted or prejudiced or racist. When the majority of terrorist attacks around the world are committed by young 20 to 30-year-old Islamic men of Middle Eastern descent, over and over and over and over again. We got a list of 25,000 cases just like that since September 11th. When that's not racism, that's called the description of the perpetrator. You are not being prejudiced against the handicapped because you've gone on a hunt for the one-armed man. So I took up this story. I took it up and I wrote it, and I made it clear. Fluttershy's out there pleading, oh, we don't know that all the changelings were like this. We don't know that they were... And Twilight just shuts her down. We have to go by what we do know. That the only changelings who stepped forward were the ones who were invading us. And that the longer that any of these alleged peaceful changelings hiding in the populace refuse to step forward, the more culpable they are for aiding and abetting an enemy of the country. Because now all the soldiers who are trying to find the remains of Chrysalis's army hiding in the hills and valleys and back alleys are going to be tripping over these so-called peaceful changelings, and they're going to have to play a guessing game as to whether or not, is this a pacifist or am I about to get my face ripped off? No, we don't need this crap. This kind of thinking is suicidal. It is suicidal to refuse to identify your country's, your society's enemies by name and by sight. The story is called Yes, It Matters. It has a link to the story that inspired it too, so you can read both and compare and decide for yourself. This has been the game. This has been the game for the past 50 years. We are not allowed to call things by their proper name. The beginning of comprehension, the beginning of understanding the world is calling things by their proper name. We are not allowed to call criminals crossing. We're not allowed to call undocumented workers by their actual name. Illegal trespassers. They are illegals. They broke the law, and they continue to break the law by being in this country. Let's run off the list. An illegal immigrant, even one who's even some nice little Rosita who washes your dishes and cleans your house. She is breaking the law in a dozen different ways. She's breaking tax laws, business laws, employment laws. She's probably breaking voting laws. She's breaking our immigration laws. Oh, she's shown, just by her actions, by refusing to come in through the front door, that she is not trustworthy. Y'all out there, y'all grown adults, you should not need to be told that somebody who comes through the front door is a guest. Somebody who climbs in through a back window is not to be trusted. We are not allowed to call homosexuals perverts anymore, even though that's the baseline clinical definition of what they are. They're perverts. They engage in deviant, aberrant sexual behavior, but that's too judgmental to call them pervert. We are not allowed. I love how they tried to co-opt some of these, the slut pride marches. What was this hysterical thing I saw? Let's see here. Let's see if I can find a link to the image. Okay, there's one out there. It has a picture of, it shows one on the left side. It shows one of these characters from a video game. One of the bikini chainmail babes from some video game. It says, "Oh, this is so oppressive of women. This is so degrading and demeaning and defiling and blah 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 blah." And on the other side, it has a almost identically clad woman carrying a slut pride sign. Now, feminists only have one standard. If it makes a man happy, it must be destroyed. It comes down to that. That's how they measure whether something is sexist or not, if a man likes it. We're not allowed to call sluts sluts. I hear this stupid. You've heard this one, a man sleeps with a bunch of women, he's a stud. A woman sleeps with a bunch of men, she's a slut. Okay. They're both morally reprehensible. They're both sinners before the eyes of God. But as one man put it, if you've got a key that opens every lock, you've got a master key. If you've got a lock that any key will open, you've got an absolutely crappy lock. A woman does not have to do anything to get sex. This is just, this isn't an ethical judgment or a moral judgment. This is a basic statement of cultural fact, biological fact. Any woman that wants to can have sex whenever she wants. You think not? Honey Boo Boo's mama has been married 3 times. Okay? End of argument. A woman who wants sex just has to be available. A man who wants sex has to be clever. He has to be good look. He has to be smooth. He has to be suave. He has to know how to spend his money to the best effect. He has to know how to chat up when he has to know how to, he has to put some effort into it. Let's just put it that way. So no, there is no comparison between the sexual shenanigans of a man and the sexual shenanigans of a woman. A man who wants sex has to be rich, famous, good-looking, or really, really smooth. A woman who wants sex just has to be available and say, yes, please. That's life. It's biology. It's no more unfair than the fact that men have testicles and women don't. But no, we're not allowed to say that. We're not allowed to call a spade a spade. And because we're not allowed to call a spade, we can't do anything about the problems. You know what a category error is? It's, to summarize, it's basically when you misdefine a problem so badly that you can't solve it because you have it in the entirely wrong category. That's what you get when you can't call something by what it is. When you can't call right, when you're not allowed to distinguish between right and wrong, good and evil, beautiful and ugly. Oh, don't get me started on the artistic side of it. Just because art has subjective values to it does not mean that there are not absolutes of beautiful and ugly, skilled and unskilled, better and worse. But in our society today, we are supposed to pretend that there is no difference between beautiful and ugly, to the point that we are expected to call the most hideous, ugly, disgusting things imaginable beautiful. This is where we sit. It traces back to the fact that society has stopped believing in absolutes because it stopped believing in God. To believe in God is to believe in the existence of of absolutes. And if you're going to insist on believing in absolute moral and ethical principles, you eventually have to come to, there are these people who are conservative and atheist, and I kind of feel sorry for them because they're basically, they believe in the law. They believe in an absolute right and wrong moral code. They believe in a law, but they don't want to believe in a legislator. They don't want to believe in the lawmaker. They are sort of intractably tied together. You can't have absolutes of right and wrong without something to frame that structure, if you follow what I'm saying. Mega Bird. See, still sorting through those. Let's see. Let's look through the lists here we have here. Let's see. Kickstarter backer report. Okay, let's go. Let's see. Let's just pop open the $100 one, see if it. Come on, giddy up. I've already got the $100 one open. Let's get the $50 one open then. And my goal, I think I need to start setting some personal goals. Over the next few, just one step at a time. My clothes. I need to pull down the. Oh, that reminds me, I gotta update that. Yeah, I'm distracted. I'm talking to myself. And okay, yeah, my next goal is close. I'll just make the. A lot of balded, goateed, 2 or 3 balded, goateed white guys in this thing. Which one's mine? Guess. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Okay, does anybody in channel have anything they want to say, anything they want to comment on, anything they want to talk about? Jump up and holla. Jump up and holla. Yeehaw. I'm gonna have to put a notification, that the beliefs of the characters being played do not, do not represent the actual beliefs of the, characters playing them, etc., etc. Because, up a lot of what I was talking about. All my topics real early. Any creature that cannot identify a threat to its existence quickly and concisely is doomed to die in a rather messy fashion. It's not an issue, it's not up for debate, it's not up to be argued, it's just a fact. The fact that sometimes the frog in the swamp mistakes a log for an alligator does not change the fact that there are alligators in the swamp. We've got a society that's gone to the opposite extreme. Every time somebody sees an alligator, there are people who insist loudly at the tops of their voices that every alligator to be seen is actually a log. And it has cost us. And even though we are still burying the dead from our refusal to recognize this threat, to recognize any threat, we have people that still get angry when you try to identify the gator in the swamp. There's not a thing you can do for them. If you refuse to recognize a pattern, a man who knows that followers of Islam all throughout the Mideast are slaughtering innocents left and right, and even slaughtering each other, killing each other based on who they think is more Islamic than thou. A man who can look at what Muslims are doing the world over, and who can turn around and see Muslims in his backyard and insist that we ignore them because maybe these Muslims are special, precious, unique snowflakes and entirely different from the rest of the world. That person is a Darwin Award waiting to happen. tragic thing is that these particular Darwin Award winners, they don't just take themselves out. Countless hundreds or thousands of people get caught in the cloud of shrapnel that results from their self-destruction. Don't want to believe that. They want to believe the world is just going to be the safe, warm, cozy little nursery school playpen they've been living in since before our parents were born. They're like these, they're like the woman in Fahrenheit 451. Wars and death happen to other people's husbands. It's other people's husbands that die in wars. Bad things happen to other people, not to us. Gods of the copybook heading with terror and slaughter return. Have to excuse me a moment. A little bit of tiredness right now. Resting a bit, trying to recuperate a little. Catch my wind. Get my blood flowing again, that kind of thing. Excuse me. I seriously feel like just now, like somebody pulled the plug on my recharger. You know what I'm saying? All of a sudden, I'm just. Just. Meh. this annoying again. This is just one of the things that's going to happen now, on and off. It looks like forever. I'm going to doze off in the middle of a broadcast from time to time. I really need a co-host. A live flesh and blood person to take over when I pass out. I really do. Somebody to strike conversationalist, you know. Your radio shows, they don't do solo DJ scene where they use, you know, they have disc jockeys. You know, they do teams, partners, 2 or 3 in a group. Don't know who would do it though. That's the thing of it. Don't got anybody around here. And running it over Skype, that has problems of its own. Turn up the volume, turn up the volume, turn up the volume, turning up the volume. Let's see here. Audio should be up. Turn up the microphone there. There we go. But nobody really around here can come in. I really wouldn't want somebody traipsing in and out of my pigsty of a house every day. But Skype, it has problems of its own. I don't know. I need somebody, for somebody who's going to be a partner, I need somebody that I was used to and that I could riff off of. I'm not sure who that would be. Considering this is a great big old nothing of a show with nothing for it. You know, we don't really have anything. This is just me flapping my yap on the internet, so it's really nothing there. It's been a rough week. I just did not. I tried to get as much sleep as possible, trying to. But I'm just feeling run down this week. Just no juice, no energy. But there you have it. My story was a bit jarring. Yeah, I'll say. Let me say this much. I've noticed that people say, you know, this was ham-fisted. I noticed that the people who tend to call something ham-fisted do so when it, you know, leaves a bruise when it hits home. I've noticed that. But really, I was taking the exact opposite route. An argument that the original author was, so it's going to come across, no matter how you do it, it's going to come across as blunt. His story was, oh, you know, it was all very sentimental and sweet, you know, this, you know, and self-righteous at the end, because all progressive stories are always ease the ear much more easily, because they tell people what they already, what they already want to hear. You tell somebody something that they don't want to hear, and you know, it's like you can hear the boxing glove hit the punching bag, because they go, wait, what? Is that what, you know? His story, his original story is you know, Fluttershy wins the argument basically, and she shames Twilight into agreeing that, oh no, you know, it'd be wrong to suspect changelings of being involved with Chrysalis just because they're changeling. Oh no, that wouldn't be right if we if we ask people, ask changeling, are you a changeling, and playing that whole I refuse to answer nonsense, and Fluttershy drapes off, and the story never clarifies whether she really is a changeling or not, just that she has the morally superior high ground for refusing to tell them. Now, as blunt, now think about that. Now, as ham-fisted as my story felt to you, that's how, think about this. Try and put yourself in my shoes. That's how ham-fisted this other author's progressive, enlightened, I am morally superior to you, leftist story felt to me. Because he had been, the whole point of the story was for him to jump in my computer, jump off the keyboard and smack me in the mush, and saying, "How dare you want to conduct a witch hunt?" Yeah, it wasn't, it was a very rough story. It was off the cuff. I'll say that much. It does set up an interesting premise, I'll grant you that. That Fluttershy is a changeling, that the changelings aren't all like Chrysalis, biologically speaking, that they take after different kinds of insects, and that they are not saboteurs, and they're not all saboteurs and infiltrators. That their thing is that they hide. They live off love energy, but they hide because they are weak and frail and timid, like Fluttershy is. Let me see here. It should be published. Now, I put it out. It should be published. Why is it not published yet? Okay, it's waiting for approval. Now, why is it waiting for approval? I want to know who it is that decides the approval, and I want them to add to group, statistics. Let's see, settings, library, rules, writing guide, chat. They need a button to contact management, Yes, it's an author filibuster. I notice they always call it an author filibuster when it's something that they are not inclined to agree with at first. Yeah. This is interesting. Heinlein Starship Troopers. According to Heinlein, his desire to write Starship Troopers was sparked by the publication of a newspaper advertisement placed by the National Committee for a Sane Nuclear Policy on April 5, 1958, calling for a unilateral suspension of nuclear weapon testing by the United States. In response, Robert and Virginia Heinlein created the small Patrick Henry League in an attempt to create support for the U.S. nuclear testing program. Heinlein found himself under attack from within and without the science fiction community for his views. Heinlein used the novel to clarify and defend his military and political views at the time. And that's interesting. I find that interesting. I got one guy here who says, oh, well, you had the moral high ground here to the other author, and insisting that my story isn't being approved yet because it's a slap fight in fic form. No, it's not. This isn't the first story I've published that has been a response to another story. Look, my other stories. Let's see here. Let's see here. Shorn was a response to another fiction. The Rise of Darth Vulcan was essentially a response to Melidius, which was terrible. Fanfic is Crapsack. That was basically a response to terrible fanfiction in general. So, let's see. It's stuck in the approval queue for some reason. And I am at a loss as to how to contact someone and get that fixed. There's no button here for contacting the... I've got to read some of these. Let's see, settings, library, rules, writing guide, chat. Ah, here we go, staff. An EQD pre-reader. There we go. I've sent off some questions that should be answered eventually. Too heavy-handed. This is my response. Is that this was not intended as a burn. It wasn't. I was stating. I've noted that people tend to call ham-fisted that which lands a blow they can actually feel. It's like the old joke about the pastor who's he's preaching against lying and stealing and womanizing and all this other stuff, and the guys in the front row are yelling amen, and then he starts preaching against drinking, and they all pucker up. And he asks them later, and they say, well, you went from preaching, you stopped preaching and went to meddling. He's got an interesting question here. He says, this guy made a comment, Zontarg makes a comment about, he's the one that posted a comment about Highline Starship Troopers. And he says, what would the equivalent story based on the states don't need borders nonsense be? Kami Kakushi, kiss my butt, okay? Okay, Gap Jaxie did not have the moral high ground here, okay? Really. Somebody playing that old song and dance, we can't fight back because some of them might be nice Nazis. Look, you'd think we would have learned from the Gulf War, okay? Remember when we took Saddam out of power? The man who killed 500,000 of his own people just for shits and giggles? The man who literally filled so many graves, mass graves, with women and children and babies that they are still digging them up? We had twatwaddles like this who went and provided themselves, they drove across Europe and provided themselves as human shields for Saddam to use to protect his poor innocent people. And you know what he did with it? He took them, he stationed them in front of he took them and basically stuck them in place as human shields in front of his military bases. This is the evil fucker who, I'll use that word, because he is just vile human being. This is the evil motherfucker who used hospitals as places to store military hardware. He was using hospitals full of sick people as bullet shields for his supplies of guns and bombs and anti-tank weapons and WMD gear, like these biohazard suits and shit. And pardon my language, it's just cuts right under me. And you still get these stupid milksops. We went to every possible length we could to keep from hurting innocent people in that. But it's called war for a reason. It's not pretty. Collateral damage happens no matter how carefully you act. And many times, the populace at large was used as human shields by the enemy. So you had a choice between letting a sniper or a machine gun nest take out all your men, and a square full of innocent civilians, or firing back and killing that so-called soldier's wife and child who were standing in front of him. And it usually wasn't their own families that were doing it. They would grab people off the street and make them serve as bullet catchers. You know what these people? You know what these Islamic sympathizers are called in Arabic? Dhimmi, Dhimmi. Closest translation is useful idiot. We are at war. We are at war with people who want to slaughter us. And they are getting upset because I have suggested that maybe we should look for the enemy where we find them. That's profiling. That's profiling. It's profiling. It's profiling. Yes, that's what police do when they're looking for somebody. They profile. That's what anybody with an IQ above that of a turnip does. Nature divided every species into two groups. One, the first group that survived is the one that looked up, yelled, "Tiger!" and ran. The second group is the one that stood there and go, "Oh, sure," and the thing jumps across the clearing and I hate to break it to you, yeah. You know, they say, but ISIS is killing other Muslims too. Big frickin' deal. The Nazis killed other Nazis. Germans were slaughtering each other too. That didn't make the fact that the German people were supporting the Nazi regime and that they were both a threat to the rest of the world. These dumb clucks are going to be the ones, they are going to open the gates to the barbarian hordes. They already have. And they are going to insist on living in their state of delusion right up until the point they're dragged into the street as an infidel whore slut, raped and beheaded. And as and the last thought that's going to go through their empty little heads as it bounces down the street, severed from their shoulders, is, "I don't know what went wrong." I don't understand. I was so undiscriminating. I had the moral high ground. Why didn't the world work out the way I wanted it to? Why in God's name do we have to be chained to fools? It's been in the queue for almost since last night. The story has been. No one dares call it treason. These people are holding the gate open for our enemies. No one has the guts to call it treason. No one has the guts to call it what it is. Treason. Our society has written its suicide note. All that's left is for it to kick the stool out from under its feet. And these mewling little simpletons they're going to be standing around till the very end, convinced that because that they have done all the right things, and been politically correct, and because they put their groceries in paper bags instead of plastic, that that everything's going to be just fine for them. That they mouthed all the right platitudes, bent the knee to all the right icons, genuflected before it's all it's all going to work out for them, because they clicked their heels 3 times and wished really hard and said there's no place like home, and that somehow they're going to escape. And somehow the foolishness that somehow they are not going to reap what they have sowed. They don't get that this isn't a children's story. You can't make friends with the monster. They've obviously gotten the message quite clear. I'm reading the comments. I'm reading the comments below the story, and people are getting the message quite clear. Oh, this is so ham-fisted. Oh, this isn't fair. This isn't right. This isn't about it. And yep, here. I didn't even have to mention the Muslims by name, and up and away she comes. And apparently, Jaxie, I hurt his feelings by writing this my own version of his story. So, well, that's life, I suppose. Doing my own spin on it. this gets under my skin too easily. I really shouldn't let it bother me that much, but really. Okay, I'll be right back. Hang on. They're oblivious. Look, they don't want to believe the monster is real. They've been told their entire lives that if they wish and pretend really hard, then everybody will be their friend. This isn't the case. Look, this is the same thing that the world went through when Germany was on the rise. Hitler wrote down exactly what he intended to do. Mein Kampf. And people refused to believe it, even when he started doing it. And there are people to this day who still refuse to believe that the Holocaust was real. I realized right up and through the entire war, even as our troops were marching into the gates of Auschwitz to liberate the Jews and all the other people that were in those horrible places, there were people who every step of the way were insisting that it wasn't real. There are people out there who thought Hitler was, the cat's pajamas, even through the war. On our side, allegedly.
This is why Patton had them come out with cameras and film everything, because he knew that people would try and claim that it never happened. But more to the question was, when he wrote down, Hitler wrote a book. He could have titled it, "I want to kill you all and make lampshades out of your skins," and nobody. How is it that somebody can sit down and literally write down exactly describe and write down what they want to do, and people will still refuse to believe it? They the Quran and all their other lesser holy writings. They might as well as title it, "I want to kill and rape y'all. I want to kill your sons, rape your daughters, and enslave your enslave any of you who survive." They could have called it that. We have footage of them doing precisely what they said they wanted to do. Murdering people, burning them to death, drowning them, executing, just hanging women, killing them, stoning them to death. Rape, murder, slaughter, mutilation. And we have these twat-waffles running around saying, "Oh, they're not all like that." Look, if they've got a copy of the Koran on the shelf in a revered spot in their homes, yes, they are. They're just warming the bench currently. The fact that they aren't doing it themselves directly doesn't change the fact where they're donating their money or where they're voicing their support, or the fact that when it comes round and the balloon goes up, they're going to pick up whatever weapons at handy and start doing it where they're standing. Every last one of the terrorists on September 11th who murdered 3,000 people, everybody who knew them thought they were just nice little Arab boys. Quiet and friendly and minded their own business instead. And every single time. Every time one of these Islamic lunatics has flipped their lid and started slaughtering any Jew they could reach, it's been the same story. "Oh, but he was such a nice boy. He didn't seem radicalized at all. He was a Muslim, but he didn't seem radicalized at all." Surprise! Happy birthday! Pull the ribbon and see what your birthday present is. They don't want to believe that the faith that these men profess is how they would act if given the opportunity. And it just about drives me mad, realizing that we have to deal with people who are in such a state of denial. People who will obstruct, they will censor and libel and slander and obstruct and shout down and jeer at anybody who threatens to wake them up from their fairy tale dream. This is real. But most of them think that because it's happening on the TV that it can't be. Oh, this is happening somewhere else, somewhere far away. It's just a stage show. It can't be real. I hope enough of this nation holds together that when the balloon finally goes up, I hope, this is my prayer, is that those who have been selling this lie, this is my prayer to God, that when the balloon finally goes up, that those of us who pick up arms to defend our nation catch up with those who have been selling this lie about Islam to the world. Chamberlain was a fool, and and his descendants seem to be running everything now. We have been told to our faces what our enemy intends to do to us. And the wretched progressives among us do not believe it is true. Our enemy is standing there with the blood of women and children on his hands, saying, "You're next." And our fellow believers in your country are going to side with us. I'm sorry, who do you think these Muslims are going to side with when the Muslim terrorists start their attacks in this country again? This has been their strategy for 1,400 years. They send people in to infiltrate a city-state that they want to conquer. They wait 10, 20 years until the nice, quiet little Muslim community has multiplied its numbers 100-fold. And then, boom, jihad from within and without the city walls. And the city falls. This is how Mecca fell. This is how this is how Constantinople fell. It's called taqiyya. They will they consider it a sacrament before Allah to lie to a non-believer, to deceive them, to gain their trust, and then to stab them in the back. They will Islamize as much of the culture as they can, and when they have enough, they wage full-out jihad, just like they're doing, just like ISIS is doing, just like Al Qaeda is doing. And now that now that Al Qaeda and ISIS have conquered most of the Middle East, make no mistake, they have. They are, they're starting to kill each other because they've run out of infidels to kill. It's a murder cult. It's not a religion of peace. And the first traitor in the White House is he's either a liar or a fool, and I'm inclined to think both. Any man who has seen what Islam does all over the world and stands up and calls it a religion of peace is an enemy of humanity. He's a traitor. He's a quisling. He's Lord Haw Haw. He's Tokyo Rose. He's a traitor. He is betraying us all to an evil that dwarfs the body count of the Nazi regime. That whose genocidal programs inspired the Nazi regime. What do they think is going to happen to the country? Guys like me are going to be the first to be shot because I got a big mouth and I can't run. It's that simple. If they don't manage to get my own government, my own country to arrest me for being a hate monger. Listen, the whole agenda of Islam is to bring about Armageddon, because they believe that the final imam, their final high priest, will be born, and that they even have a path traced out where he's going to walk. One of the things that the Iranian leader is doing is he is funding the building of roads along this path. The Imam is supposed to appear on earth, and he is supposed to walk that path through Armageddon. And Armageddon is supposed to strike. The Imam is supposed to be born. He is supposed to walk a specific path to Mecca. And when he arrives, the new glorious worldwide caliphate of Islam will begin. That's a nutshell summary. This is why that bearded little mutant freak is so desperate to get his hands on nukes. This guy looks like a walnut with 3 days growth of beard. He wants to start Armageddon to bring about the coming of the final Imam. No one believes. No one wants to believe what the Muslims have been telling us openly right to our face. What the holy writings of the Muslims say out loud. They're clinging to the myth that anybody who criticizes another culture is a racist. They got this little meme. If you criticize the behavior of women, you're a sexist. If you criticize the behavior of a culture, you're a racist. Even if that culture isn't even a race, it's a religion. They sexist, racist, homophobe. Those three words have become the new duty head. Okay? They've used it so much that the word means nothing. Which means that you can use it for everything, which they do. There are people out there who are saying, we elected Obama. We're getting God's punishment because Obama is God's punishment. We're getting what we deserve. I have to dispute that because, frankly, Obama, it's not even a majority of Americans who are voting. I think something like 40%, less than half of the voting age voters in this country, people of voting age, people who are registered to vote, actually vote in this country. And that minority is further divided between the two major parties, with all the other little piddly diddly ones scraping off a few points here and there. Obama was elected by a minority. He was also elected because he's a minority, but he was elected by a small percentage of the American people. The majority of the nation did not want him in power. Thanks to the shenanigans of the political parties, the conservative vote that should have thrown him out of power in the second election was divided. They did it the same way with Clinton. Clinton should have been bounced out on his ass after the first 4 years. But they managed to get Perot to run, which threw the conservative side of the vote into confusion. And they got McCain, and they kept switching off, the switch hitting, and they wondered why people stopped voting for Republicans. The Democrats, at least, could pick a horse and run with it, no matter how ugly it was. Look, I don't think that Trump would make a very good president. I want Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is as far as I've seen, the most conservative, and explicitly conservative in policy and in politics and in what he says and in what he does and how he votes. But the Republican and Democrat parties have become a death knell for politicians because people have come to the conclusion that no matter who they vote for, from the Republican or Democrat Party, the Republicans and Democrats are just going to promise anything they can to get a vote. People have finally figured out that the Republicans and Democrats just make big promises and then do their damnedest to make sure that the only candidate we have to choose is one who will never deliver on them. And so they are voting for Trump because he's the only one who is not establishment Republican or Democrat. And say what you will about him changing his policy stances, at least he's a businessman. He at least knows that if his customers are not happy, he has to change his policies. I do not believe that Trump is. I do not believe Trump is a Christian. I do not believe Trump is a real full-bore conservative. But at this point, let's face it. Just about any faintly conservative candidate would be better than what we're getting and what we have. Let's be frank. A sock monkey with a magic 8-ball duct taped to its paws would make a better president than Obama would. Because statistically, a magic 8-ball would have to get at least some decisions right. Obama goes out of his way to make the wrong choice every single time. Because he is a communist, because he is a Muslim, because he is an America-hating, lying Quisling. He is an enemy of this country. He hates what it is, he hates what it stands for, and he wants to tear it down to rubble and build he wants to build a communist regime where our free market once stood, and a caliphate where our free, God-fearing Christian society used to stand. I am not joking when I say they could put a stuffed monkey with an 8-ball in its hands in the Oval Office and it would do a better job. So at the very least, if Trump gets elected, yeah, he'll do a better job. Trump will do a better job than Obama ever could. And he'll barely have to try to surpass Obama. And the Republicans are all, the Republican Party is all standing around in a circle, with their butts in their hands, trying to figure out what's wrong. They still think that their job is to pick a pretty package for us to vote for so they can do whatever they want. Of course, Trump has no modesty, but come on. You think any of these other politicians have any modesty? Look at Obama. If he stuck his nose up any higher, he'd drown the next time it rained. He's a conceited bitch. His wife is a conceited bitch. Hillary Clinton is a conceited bitch, too. The Democrats, a good portion of the Republicans, I suspect, too, but the Republicans at least have enough tact not to let it hang out everywhere. But the Democrat Party, they're notorious. Anybody who's ever actually dealt with a Democrat politician, their arrogance, their contempt for the common man, ranging from anybody they know, ranging from people out in flyover country to the person holding the towels in the bath. They look down with disdain on everyone. They have been in power for decades. Many of them have been in Congress for literally longer than some of you have been alive. They are a self-anointed class of nobility. And they look down on anybody outside the Beltway and outside the Capitol building as being peasants. They treat their staff that way. They treat their servants that way. They treat random people on the street that they meet that way. They'd have to be. Because they'd have to be arrogant because they believe in policies that involve treating other human beings like chattel. Dictating what they can eat, drink, wear, where they can walk, what they can read. That's the definition of freedom, really, by the way. Freedom is the prejudice that people should be treated like adults. Progressives, liberals, whatever they want to call themselves this week, they're wretched human beings. They are filled with the arrogance of the self-anointed. And they consider anybody who isn't of their inner circle, anybody who disagrees with them, as being unenlightened and therefore unworthy of listening to. And they treat everybody outside their personal circle with pandering condescension. They think that black people are too stupid, pathetic, and weak to be successful without their constant guiding help. They think that women should be perpetual victims. They think that any minority should be treated the same way. They think that every man, woman, and child should have the government dictate how many portions of food they put on their own plates. They do everything except lean over the table and cut your food for you. Now, little American citizen, you don't want to take 2 big bites? Here, let me cut this. Oh, this is steak. Let me get you some tofu. We put people in power that, were we more rational, we would simply punch in the throat. Hi, my name's Democrat J. Twatwaffle, and I'm here running for... I'm sorry, I've gotten into a very bad habit of using rather crass terms in this show. I'm going to take a minute, I'm going to apologize for that, and I recant that, and I repent of that. But by justification, I'm dealing with people, I'm talking about people whose policies and attitudes are they're vulgar. Treating other people the way that Democrats insist they be treated is vile. We already live in a country where we are no longer allowed to call sodomites perverts. We're not allowed to call people who engage in sexual acts with their own gender perverted. And if you say it, they attack you with, you're a homophobe, you're being bigoted and prejudiced, and you shouldn't say such things, you're triggering us, and blah 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 blah. I give you 10 years maximum before they're saying the same thing about pedophiles. Calling them kitty diddlers is insensitive. You think it won't happen? You think it won't happen? It's happened in countries. It's happened in nations and in civilizations throughout history. The tribes that the Israelis, the ancient people of Israel, that God sent in to throw out of the land, to drive out of the land of Canaan. These were people for whom bestiality, pedophilia, and infant sacrifice were all, standard of the day, ordinary behavior. They were vile. And you know that their society didn't start out that way. It corrupted. And people are fools if they think our society won't go the same way if we don't repent, if we don't start turning back to God, if we don't start repenting of the follies we have adopted. And millions will be sucked into the sinkhole. You realize God said, one of the simplest commands God gave was, thou shalt not steal. You realize that our entire monetary system is based precisely on that. What do you call it when you take in $20 worth of gold coins and you print out $50 in paper bills? That's theft. It's theft by forgery. And up until the 60s, that was, from about 1914 to the 1960s, that was the policy. That was the financial policy of our country. The Bible says, neither a borrower nor a lender be. And our entire economic system relies on the idea of buy now, pay later. That's how our banks run. It's not off private individuals buying and selling. A bank uses fractional reserve. They only have $100 in the bank. They will print up $1,000 in IOUs and give them out as money. They'll give it out as money, and that money will be spent and invested. And the whole idea is that the same lie that every terrible home finance individual says, when they're counting out their monies, I'll pay it back later. And the reason we have such a huge national deficit, trillions of dollars, all of that is little letters saying, I'll pay it back later. Every dollar in your pocket is an IOU. We borrowed against debt, and we kept doing it, and now there's no way on earth that we can possibly make enough money to pay off. We can never accumulate enough real money in gold or goods or services to pay back $3 trillion in IOUs. And these IOUs were written out without the permission of those receiving it. If you write out an IOU and pretend that it's real money, you're stealing. And that is precisely what our government has been doing for the past 100 years. God is slow to wrath. Very slow to wrath. Largely because he doesn't have to do too much when the cows come home, when it finally all comes a cropper. He doesn't have to do anything. He just has to stand back there and watch us reap what we sowed. All these people are finally going to reach a point where the dollar will collapse. It will just disappear like a puff of ash. And they will all stand around there screaming, Jesus, save us. God, save our country from this disaster. And God will say the same thing he says to everybody who gambles at Vegas. Like Bill Cosby said, all these people out out in Vegas in the casinos out there. He's seen people with more. Never seen so many St. Christopher medals. You see, they go out there. It's not the dealer holding, praying to God. Oh God, please don't let this guy draw an inside straight. No. Everybody who goes in there knows which way the ball's rolling. But they're out there with, they call it on God and Jesus and Buddha and everybody else they can think of. Oh God, please let me. And God says the exact same thing every time.
Bust everybody.
And that's what God's going to say when the dollar collapses and takes most of the monetary systems of the world with it. He's going to say the same thing.
Bust everybody.
Only those few people who have had enough sense to turn, the private individuals who have had the sense to turn their money into goods, gold, and services. Those are the only ones who are going to have anything left. And the sad thing is, the story of the ant and the grasshopper. The grasshopper plays around all summer. And the ant is working all summer and getting ready for winter. And the grasshopper's like, oh, I don't need to. And the winter comes and the grasshopper dies while the ant survives. No. What's going to happen is that the winter's going to come. And the grasshopper is going to round up all his friends. And do a dynamic entry raid on live TV, screaming about evil tyrants hoarding food. And they're going to loot the few people who have had the sense to prepare for hard times and guarantee that everybody starves. Everybody talks about, the horrible scenario where, you've built a bunker, a bomb shelter, and you've got it under your house, and it's just for you and your family. And, they paint this horrible scenario where you're going to have to lock the door and listen to all your neighbors bang on the outside door, help us, help us, help us, and you listen to them die. You think it was any different for Noah? I wonder how many of those people actually thought of Noah's Ark when the flood started. They probably were too busy trying to loot each other. Seriously, think about it. They were probably too busy trying to rape and murder and rob and loot each other to go, oh yeah, Noah has an ark. The thing was, he built that ark big enough for tons of people. He built it up big enough for plenty of people. And if people had believed him, they might have built more than one ark. We don't know what measures they might have taken, but because they didn't take any measures, yes, it's heartless. But if God had left the gangplank down for the ark, the rioting mobs would have poured in and destroyed everything, and the boat would have sunk in the anarchy, and they would have all died, and that would have been the end of humanity. When, preparing, the hardest thing about preparing for doomsday is knowing that you're not going to be able to save everybody. And if you try to save everybody after the balloon goes up, after the hammer falls, after the doomsday deadline, after the countdown to zero, then you're going to get yourself and them killed. When our society collapses, there are lots of people out there who have made a policy. There are thousands of people, hundreds of thousands, survivalist approaches, stockpiling. The mobs will fall on those that they know about. And the end result will be that they'll divide up all the spoils, and everybody will have maybe a can of beans and a soup spoon, and then everybody will die of starvation. Instead, even the family that went to all the trouble of accumulating that for a dark day. Your responsibility isn't to save the world. Your responsibility is to tell the world how to save itself. Or rather, to tell the world what it needs to do to be saved. If they refuse to take the course of action necessary for their own salvation, after the axe falls, on their own heads be it. Nobody said it was going to be easy either. Because when the final, when it finally all goes up, people who you used to call friends will turn into murderous, rioting, thieving mobs. And you will have a choice between dying and shooting. There is a point, there's a point where God says, too late. God save us from not listening to Him beforehand. All of us. This is why God's wrath is so slow. He's giving us every possible chance. Whether you're talking secularly or spiritually, He gives us every possible chance to repent, to change our minds, to listen to what He said, to change our course of action, to do things differently, to turn to Him rather than our own designs. But when it's finally too late, it's too late. May God have mercy on me, a sinner. But I know there are so many things in my life where I want to be better, but I know that I will fail to listen and I will push my luck. That's the thing about pushing your luck. Eventually it breaks. America has been pushing its luck for decades. Hard. The civilizations of the Western world have been pushing their luck hard to the breaking point. We're testing ourselves to destruction, and the destruction is coming. Turn to Christ while you are able. And you think that that saying doesn't apply to secular matters? It does. I mean, there's no spiritual life and secular life. It's a continuum. When you have accepted Jesus Christ as your Savior, that is your life. And all aspects of your life are influenced by
His teachings, His values, His laws, His right and His wrong. It was God that invented the policy of thou shalt not steal. Honor thy father and mother, love thy neighbor as thyself. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. You will note that the laws God passed down to the Hebrew people weren't all just airy-fairy, spiritual, sit and navel gaze stuff. This was laws about the material realities of life. The spiritual applies to the material. And if your spiritual life is dead, if you are spiritually dead, then you're not going to have anything upon which to build a functioning secular life. Start with the first tool, you know. If a man gains, you know, what profiteth a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? A man who has gained his soul, who has had his soul saved by Jesus Christ, gains all the world and more. Not all at once, and maybe not till kingdom come. He may die a pauper, but he's going to come back in a mansion. It is 8:40. I'm going to call it a night. I will see you tomorrow night. Same time, same channel. Put in a little more time. Y'all take care of yourselves. Pray for me, because God Almighty knows I need it. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. And God bless you all. Good night.